And we are live. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Football on Forever Sports, the launch of our weekly live shows for football as we try and sort of expand our reach in the sort of YouTube sports space. As most people on the channel would know, we have been very much rugby orientated for the last sort of 2 years, really, I suppose, since we kind of get going, just under 2 years since we launched the channel, pretty much 18 months since we've actually been doing it with any sort of seriousness. And the intention was always to try and expand and to try and sort of move into different spaces and try and sort of diversify the audience. And as a result, we have decided to launch Forever Football in a little bit more sort of seriousness. And it's going to take a while for things to pick up, I'm sure, but hopefully we're going to try and sort of start building a different type of audience on the channel, as well as bringing some of the rugby fans across here. And I think that hopefully in a couple of months' time, when we get to sort of the FIFA World Cup, which is in just a few months' time, we'll have quite a nice sort of football sort of community going, as well as a fantastic rugby community. And if we can replicate anything like that, then I think we're going in for what should be quite a special project. But basically, what's going to be happening is we're going to be looking at sort of doing shows about 3 times a week, hopefully. And they'll usually probably be before or after the rugby live shows, depending on what's happening with various press conferences and stuff like that. And we're going to start doing watch-alongs and hopefully start doing watch-alongs with more than just sort of one person, try and sort of do a kind of community watch-alongs, try and get sort of 1 or 2 people into studio. We're going to look to do sort of fan forums, basically sort of very similar content to what we've been doing on a rugby sort of point of view. We're going to start doing it on football with a bit more sort of seriousness and a bit more focus. So it should be quite fun. So yeah, let's sort of really sort of strap in and get ready for what's going to be an interesting few months. And in terms of an interesting few months, we saw a very interesting weekend of Premier League football. And we had a very interesting stage in the Premier League and in the global football season because the seasons have started and title challenges are on and early relegation battles are on and stuff like that. But we are still in the middle of a transfer window and what's been a very interesting transfer window and starting to sort of see how some of the players are coming right in certain teams, how some players are struggling in other teams. We've seen red cards, 2 big signings. We're seeing big clubs really failing this past weekend. We're seeing big clubs really struggle to get their their signings over the line, stuff like that. So over the next sort of half an hour, we're going to look back at some of the results. We've still got a couple of games. And we start looking at, for example, in the upcoming weekend. And but it was a very interesting weekend of Premier League football, and we saw some pretty big markers being put down by the likes of Arsenal. For example, who really did come good this weekend. We saw Manchester City as well make quite a big statement, but we also saw teams slip up, and the likes of the Manchester United very much so, and also Liverpool last night. So it was quite an interesting weekend. So we'll start with the Premier League sort of the results and have a look at the league table, and then we're going to sort of dive more into some of the transfer news and what we can look forward to over the next sort of week or two as the sort of transfer window comes to an end. So in terms of the weekend's matches, these are some of the results that we did see. So it started off with a 0-0 between Brighton and Newcastle, which is probably not a bad result for either side. Both sides who have put in some very impressive performances over the last few months and very interesting projects, very much part of the hype for Newcastle. I am personally, because I think that I've always been a massive Eddie Howe fan, and I think that Newcastle's football project's a very interesting one in terms of the type of players they're bringing in terms of where they're spending money. They are spending a lot of money, and they are very much going out and making some pretty big statements or the signings, but nothing like Galacticos vibes. They're not going and signing the best players in the league and throwing 100, 110 million. They're going and signing, for me, some very smart players. So we saw a 0-0 there, as we did a 0-0 between Wolves and Fulham. Now, Arsenal continue to sort of set the early pace with a 4-2 victory over Leicester City, which is a very significant result. And unfortunately, as a United fan, I think Arsenal fans are going to be quite happy this season because I think that Arsenal are going to be quite strong. Gabriel Jesus looks like a very good signing for them. And that's kind of what they've been lacking over the past couple of seasons. Is ever since sort of the fall off of Aubameyang, they've been lacking an out-and-out goal scorer who's going to get them 20 to 30 goals every season, and he is looking like the player that is going to do that for Arsenal. I think Arsenal's biggest sort of test will be the depth if they do pick up some injuries, but their starting 11 is all starting to come right, and Mikel Arteta seems to be getting things right in that change room. Manchester City are the favourites, aren't they, for the Premier League? And it's. I think Michael Richards was giving his sort of prediction on the season, and he basically said that it is Manchester City's title to lose, and it is, and not only from a certain they are the defending champions, but they've still definitely got the best squad. They've added Erling Haaland, they've added Calvin Phillips. They've added some pretty amazing players to their squad, and they've not lost too much. So they very much are sort of the gold standard of English football at the moment. And a 4-0 victory over Bournemouth, it doesn't get much better. I think a 4-0, and we're going to look about that Brentford versus Manchester United game, is a very big statement win. So Manchester City continues to sort of be the gold standard, and they're very much setting the early pace. And we're going to look at the table in a bit. But the big result was Manchester United 4-0, Brentford 4. And luckily, I didn't manage to watch the game live because it was in the middle of the rugby. Because, yeah, as a Manchester United fan, I mean, it's just the club is in absolute disarray, And the sad part is that there just doesn't seem to be any sort of light at the end of the tunnel at the moment. We brought in a new manager, in Erik ten Hag, but there are still so many of the same issues. You're looking at the quality of so many of those players in that starting 11, and there are so many questions about whether they should be there. There's a whole the Ronaldo sort of debacle is still going on. There are now leaks going on about the fact that there are change room rows, that there are issues with the change room from a Ronaldo perspective. The transfer window has been a bit of a disaster. I mean, they brought in Ericsson, Martinez, and Malaysia, but nothing. They're still, as usual, in many ways, the last few seasons, Manchester United have still not really fixed what they needed to fix with regards to their transfer. And if you look at their team, it's still a diabolical midfield which can't control anything. And, to be hammered 4-0 by Brentford is pretty disgusting. And to be sitting, we'll look at the logs, to be sitting where they are is really poor. A massive result over the weekend was Nottingham Forest beating West Ham United, where Dean Henderson had an absolute storm of a game. Saved a penalty. I mean, West Ham hit the crossbar and post about 4 or 5 times. And I mean, they were probably about 4 centimeters shy of some of the goals of the season with some of the efforts they had, but they couldn't find a goal. And Forest capitalizing, getting that 1-0 win. We then saw a very drama-filled match between Chelsea and Spurs, which sort of all culminated in the kicking off between Antonio Conte and Thomas Tuchel. And I think that Spurs doing very well to come back and get that draw. I think Chelsea will be frustrated, but for both teams, not the worst result. Very much a better result for Spurs to go to Stamford Bridge and to get a point. Harry Kane has become the joint 4th top goal scorer of all time in the Premier League. And not too many goals behind. I think it's Andy Cole who's next. So I think he needs about 3 or 4, and then he'll go second. Well, he'll go third rather, after Wayne Rooney and Alan Shearer. So a pretty big moment for him. And I had to have a laugh because yesterday I got a sent a voice note from a Liverpool fan who said, I was just trying to check in on all my United fans, make sure that they're doing okay, and there's not too late to change to Liverpool and come over to the side. And karma is a real bitch sometimes, because it's just a few hours after getting that voice note, Liverpool being held to a 1-1 draw against Crystal Palace. An important moment in the game. Darwin Núñez getting a red card, which means he will miss the Manchester United clash. But if we go and have a look at the table, it is fairly shocking as a United fan to look at the table. But the funny thing is that Manchester United are sitting at the bottom of the table. I mean, I don't think I've ever seen Manchester United at the bottom of the table at this point in the season. However, they will be playing against Liverpool on Monday next week, which is my birthday, so it's going to be a horrible birthday, potentially. However, having said that, if they were to beat Liverpool, they would actually go ahead of Liverpool. So Manchester United sitting with a -5 goal difference at the bottom of the table with 0 points next to West Ham and Everton. And I don't think 5 years ago you would have said quite comfortably that after the first 2 weekends, the bottom 3 would be Everton, West Ham, and Manchester United, which is quite strange. But the two leading, as I said, the two hot out the blocks are City and Arsenal, sitting with 6 out of 6. Brentford going with 4 out of 2, as well as Spurs, Newcastle, Leeds, Chelsea, and Brighton. But Liverpool and Manchester United, the two in the big 6 who have started very slowly. Manchester United hadn't started at all. the fact that they still are not off the mark. But if they were by some miracle to go and beat Liverpool, Liverpool would suddenly be sitting with 2 points after 3 matches. Manchester will be sitting off 3 which is still a dreadful start. But you could very well see Liverpool sitting, in the sort of the bottom quarter of the table if they were to lose against Manchester United. And funny enough, it probably would. I think I've actually got a weird feeling that Manchester United could do it. Do we deserve to? I mean, will we probably play well enough? No, but it's kind of like been the kind of thing as a Manchester United fan where we're absolutely dreadful all the time, and then every now and again we'll pull in a performance and we'll go, oh, cool, there's something to be chuffed about. So, chance on Manchester United are the type of team that would go and beat Liverpool on Monday and then lose to a Southampton, a Fulham, a Bournemouth the weekend after. But it is a massive opportunity for Manchester United to make a bit of a statement, go and beat Liverpool and say, well, actually they've had a worse start. The sad thing is, as a United fan, is that United were never a team that would compare themselves to other teams. They kind of always used to be the gold standard. Whereas, as you can see in the top of the table, Manchester City, Arsenal are the early impressors, really. And I mean, Manchester City still yet to concede a goal. They've scored 6 in the first 2 games. They do look frighteningly good once again. Arsenal looking very, very good as well. Gabriel Jesus, as I said earlier, seems to be a terrific signing for them. Spurs, I said at the beginning of the season, and I think in my preview, I said I think Spurs could be a bit of a dark horse. First of all, it's Antonio Conte, which means that he can produce results. He's a Premier League winner. He wins wherever he goes. He is a winner. He doesn't often last at clubs particularly long because he does ruffle a few feathers. He's a very competitive character. He's a very confrontational person, as we saw with confrontation with Thomas Tuchel after the end of the match on Sunday, which we'll probably see them both not be on the sidelines next weekend. But I think they've also amassed a pretty good squad. And the fact that they've continued to be able to keep Harry Kane, continue to be able to keep Son Heung-min and add Richarlison along with Kulusevski, and you look at their midfield, they've added Perisic to that squad. They've got a midfield which has likes of Basuma, like a Højbjerg, Bentancur. There's some quality players across that Spurs side, and right now still looking sort of defensively. Wouldn't say frail, but they are a team that you can score goals against. They have conceded 3 so far, but the longer they play in that sort of system, Antonio Conte has now had a transfer window where he can add all the players he wants. I think that Spurs team could become quite good, and I think that I'm not necessarily going to challenge for the league, but I'm very much a side that are going to be looking to finish top 4, hopefully a bit more comfortably than they did last season. Whereas for likes of Manchester United, top 6, top half, top anything at the moment is looking pretty poor because they've been blown away by Brighton and Brentford, conceding 6 goals across 2 games, which is not gone well. But before we look at some of the fixtures we'll go through later in the week. But in terms of the transfer window, and it's been a very strange transfer window for a variety of reasons. From a Premier League point of view, we have seen some pretty sensational transfers, but we see still some big transfers coming up. But what I think has made this transfer window almost been the cornerstone of the transfer window has been the bizarre situation with Barcelona, where their financial position is obviously not allowing them to register players. They have to offload players, and sort of the Frankie de Jong saga has been the big one the entire season, where Manchester United have been, supposedly quite close to signing him for about 2 or 3 months now, and still don't seem to be any really closer to getting it. And it's weird because you kind of sit there and wonder, as Frankie de Jong, why is he so? He's at a club which clearly do not want him. They want him, but they can't afford to have him, and they've clearly made him expendable. But first of all, a lot of the Barcelona players are owed wages. Something like Braithwaite, who's busy being booed and stuff by the fans, stuff like that. But quite rightly so. You've got a club who owe all these players so many, millions worth of wages, and yet they're spending money on players, and they want to bring in new players, stuff like that, and then they're sitting there telling their current players you have to take a wage cut. So you can understand why these current players are saying, actually, no. Bugger you, we're not going to take a wage cut. You're going to go and spend all this money on all these various players and not pay us. Why should we take a wage cut? So the Barcelona situation has really sort of been the talk of the town, and it's impacted quite a few different deals. With there's talk that somebody like Christensen, who's gone to Barcelona, could actually leave if they weren't able to trigger all the financial levers they're trying to do, trying to allow them to register all their best players. And Barcelona is basically currently like selling the soul of the club. They're selling their broadcast rights. They're selling, merchandising deals and stuff like that. Basically, they're not necessarily compromising, but they are forfeiting a lot of long-term revenue to try and fix the short term. And whether it's going to work or not, remains to be seen. But it's a big problem that Barcelona are having, and Manchester United are trying to capitalize that and trying to bring in Frankie de Jong, but they just don't seem to be any closer. And it's a problem because the biggest issue is that they've not given up on him and therefore not gone after other players. And we sit there watching a midfield which just aren't good enough. But yeah, some people in the comments, I've seen Jay Pringle say, said about my team, Manchester United. Sports Dictionary says, what's going on with Chelsea's transfer business? Very confusing. Yeah, Chelsea had a bit of an emotional roller coaster of a transfer window. We saw them, just recently, a couple of weird transfers, submitting a 40 million pound bid for the Everton, on the Everton midfielder, what's his name? It'll come to me now. I had it open here. There's talks that, the big talks for Chelsea at the moment are the Fofana deal, where they're very much going after Wesley Fofana, and Leicester holding out for a really big amount of money, as they have been known to do. Leicester always get value for money when they sell their player. You look at the Harry Maguire transfer, and he was a 40-50 million player, and United had to pay 80 million in because Leicester played hard ball. So Anthony Gordon, that's the one, you guys. That's the one. Plus, I had someone, I couldn't find it. Yeah, interesting that Chelsea. They're going for a lot of different people, and there was that whole sort of running joke where every single time they went for someone, Barcelona would say thank you very much. But at the moment, no massive breakthrough with regards to the Fofana deal. And look, he would be a terrific signing for them. I would like to personally see him stay at Leicester for another season. Given the fact that they have backed him, and he was injured for a long time, coming back from that injury. The football romance part of it is very much you'd like to see him sort of repay the faith and give him another season. But he is also one of the hottest prospects from a centre back point of view in Europe. So it would be a fantastic signing for them if they got over the line. Speaking of getting over the line, today Manchester City announcing the signing of Anderlecht left back Sergio Gomez for £11 million. They announced that about half an hour ago. He's been signed on a 4-year deal. He's 21 years old, and very much reviewed as they were looking at Cucurella, who then obviously went to Chelsea, so sort of the backup deal. But they have gotten that over the line. He will wear the number 21. That was announced earlier. So what, in terms of what we're looking at this week, we saw a very strange report last night. The Manchester United have put in a 45 or 40 million euro or pound sort of bid for Atletico Madrid's Matías Cunha, which is a weird sort of player to suddenly have a big bid for, because he didn't seem to be on the Manchester United radar. A striker very much appears to be on the Manchester United radar, because first of all, we don't know what's going to happen with Ronaldo. And a lot of United fans are not quite over it, kind of saying, well, if he wants to go, he must go. And a lot of pundits saying that, in fact, he's actually holding back the club from a tactical point of view. But the end of the day, he brings goals. He brings guaranteed goals. And the issue with Manchester United is where we're going to find goals. And, we've lost out on Darwin Núñez. We've lost out on Erling Haaland. We've lost out on so many striking options that there aren't that many options to go for. There was rumors about Leicester about going off Jamie Vardy, which is going to be expensive because it's Leicester, and especially Leicester and Manchester United. They know they're going to get the premium. So it's worrying times for a Manchester United fans. Leonardo say Man United going to offer him ridiculous wage to join, only coming for money if he has no ambition as shown by the club. I think, we've known this for quite a long time, where Manchester United no longer have the Manchester United pull. It's no longer good enough to say, we're Manchester United, come and join us for the club, because, you're sitting last in the Premier League. You're not in the Champions League. You've been in disarray for the last how many years? You've got the fans protesting every second match and rioting over the ownership, which is a massive issue. So you kind of feel that that until there's new ownership, that sort of Manchester United aura has kind of gone. There isn't that easy. Of course, you'll want to come. We're Manchester United. That's kind of been lost, and as a result, we have had to pay players silly wages, which is an issue because obviously that's wrecked the wage structure. So there's so many sort of, and I think that's the issue. If you look at like a Chelsea, you've had a very weird transfer window, up and down transfer window. Talks about them going after Aubameyang. They've lost it. They've let go of Timo Werner. They've also got no Romelu Lukaku, so they're currently sitting without a striker, playing sort of Kai Havertz up front, relying on a lot of goals from Pulisic, and not really having an out-and-out striker. But systematic. In terms of their systems, Chelsea's systems are still substantially better than Manchester United, even the fact that they are under new ownership. So I suppose we are in sort of a bit of a trial period for them. But Manchester United are just sort of rotting from the core out, which is the biggest issue. So other sort of transfer rumors is that there continues to be talks between Tottenham and Napoli for Tanga and Ndombele. And yeah, just a strange player who's incredibly talented, has everything in his locker room, but is just marred by a really poor attitude. And very much not a Conte player. He's going to work hard, get his head down, not cause issues within the squad. So it's very much a deal that makes sense to try and get him rid of. Albert Sharp shooting saying Man United relegation battle end of the season will be blockbuster. Calm down. I don't think we'll be quite there. Sports Dictionary saying Gary Neville mentioned that Man United might finish outside the top 10. Surely not that bad. I mean, we've just been not even like beaten. We've been outclassed by Brighton and we've been outclassed by Brentford. And unfortunately, you can't look at those games and think we've got injuries. And there's a lot of things that can change from a personnel point of view because there isn't. And that's why, look, I think we'll be top 10. But because I think that Ten Hag will take a while, but then things will start sort of putting through. Hopefully, he is a manager who historically has started quite slowly at his clubs, but it's difficult because you can't wait until December, January to start playing well and leave it too late. We're not going to be in a relegation scrap. We'll be in top 10. I think we will be in top 10, but if we don't start seeing fixes, then we're in big trouble. New Junior Boys say thoughts on Nunes after last night. Liverpool's a bit short of players now. That Darwin Nunes red card. I mean, I actually missed it because I was out for dinner and I watched the highlights this morning. It's such a stupid red card. I mean, you can't even begin to compare it. We've seen sort of headbutts which are headbutts in inverted commas and not massive. The aggressive. I mean, that was just a stock standard headbutt. You can't defend it, you can't justify it. It was pretty easy for him to do. And Jurgen Klopp actually had a go at him and saying that, and I quote here, Darwin knows his team race down. I'll talk to him. It was not a reaction we want to see. He knows he'll be challenged in this way. Centre halves will do that, but it's not the reaction we want. But we will use the time productively. We will use the suspension for physical work to make him strong, not a punishment, but to make him stronger. But I mean, it's amazing how suddenly the Liverpool depth is maybe not quite, and that's kind of always been the case of Liverpool, where they've had a phenomenal starting 11, maybe even phenomenal sort of 14 players, but when they have had injuries, they've struggled. As soon as Van Dijk got injured, that was about 2 seasons ago, they really struggled. And if you look at their forwards, they've lost Sadio Mane, but they brought in Luis Diaz, who's hit the ground running. And they brought in Fabio Carvalho, who is a very young player. He's 19 years old. So not going to see too much of him, I don't think. But bringing in Darwin Nunes was like the Sadio Mane replacement. Easy, bang, cool. Mane's left, but we brought in Nunes. We've still got Jota. So Firmino's going to now sort of child bench. We've now got an out-and-out centre forward, one of the best centre forwards, up-and-coming centre forwards in the country and in Europe or in the world even, and we're sorted. He gets a headbutt, red card, banned for a game. not playing against United, so you won't play against United, and suddenly, you're looking at going back to Firmino up front, and you've got Jota, Diaz, Salah, but if you were to have two injuries within that front three, for example, if Salah and Nunez were to go down, you're now relying on Diaz, Jota, and Firmino for your goals. So, I think that Liverpool are a little bit probably a player short up front, in terms of genuine quality. I mean, look, I think Nunez and Salah and Jota and Diaz. I think the four of them are pretty world class. But again, as soon as two of them go down, you can't rely on goals from Firmino. He's not a centre forward which gets you a lot of goals, which is a walking contradiction. But he is that kind of player. So yeah, I think that in their midfield, I mean, Thiago, for example, if he's going to be injured for a while, Oxlade-Chamberlain's injured. Shock and horror. I do think there are a couple of injuries in the midfield away from it also being in a bit of trouble. It's a good squad that Liverpool have had, but it's not quite Manchester City depth. Is the reality, and it's still not Manchester City depth. Obviously, all the coaches allowed to make personal changes. Four managers in the same squad getting the same results. Look, they definitely are allowed to make personal changes, but the problem is you can only sign so many players in the transfer window, and we kind of need to sign probably 7 or 8 players of the season. Manchester United, and we've signed 3, of which one appears to be a backup left back at this rate. Martinez does seem to be starting centre back. Despite all the memes and stuff like that he is tiny. I think he will get better. You've got Eriksen, who is he's a nice signing. It's a really nice signing, but doesn't fix the core issues. De Gea continues to be an issue. Not having Mason Greenwood's left a massive hole in United, and the midfield there is no midfield. We've been dying for an out and out, probably 2 genuine ball playing midfielders, because Fred and McTominay continue to really struggle, and we just don't replace them, and that's the biggest issue. If you brought in 2 midfielders now to Manchester United, and you brought in another striker, and you probably need a right back as well, so you need another 3-4 players at this stage, over and above the 3 players you need, and potentially another goalkeeper. So that's what I'm saying. You basically need an overhaul at United, and it's just never come. Shaw would say, get you in the footy side for change your team. Yeah, Manchester United, unfortunately. Thought you looked good in preseason, but shocked how they're doing this year. Yeah, I think it goes to show how preseason can be so far off the mark. I was really hoping that was going to be the case with Arsenal, who also looked phenomenal in preseason. I was really hoping that they were going to then struggle come when push came to shove for the season, but they just haven't, which has been really upsetting, because Arsenal fans are the worst type of fan. They really are. Even when they're doing badly, they'll just sit there and dig up irrelevant crap and have a go and stuff. I do find them one of the worst fan bases, unfortunately. Avian says, think the transfer of Guard leaving Man United shows how much the club lack IQ, quality proven player who helped promote Nottingham Forest. Yeah, look, he's been one of my favorite players for a long time. I've been waiting for him to come in for the last 4 or 5 years. I was watching him as a junior. But so the fact that we're looking to sell him is very upsetting. But that is about where United is, unfortunately. Unfortunately, can't do much about it. But I think we'll have to wait and see. And it's now getting to that sort of stage where you kind of just want. It's funny how the transfer window is so much fun for about 2-3 months, and then you get to mid-August, and you're like, it must just end now. We must either get the players we need to get, or else we must lose the players we're going to lose. But at the moment, we're now just in an annoying situation where we're playing, the on-field results aren't going well, off the field, the transfer market's not going well. And it's just one frustration after the next. So yeah, you get quite over it. I honestly didn't think Liverpool would miss Marnie that much. Just shows how bad he is. 100%. United lead the Kanya in the midfield. And more. But we're gonna wrap it up for today. It's not a longer show. We're gonna sort of hopefully build these shows as we go. And hopefully have a bit more various sort of aspects, stuff like that. We'll start bringing in a couple of features and stuff. But it was nice to sort of get out off the ground running. We're probably going to be having these on Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Monday, Wednesday, Friday type thing. As we do try to sort of build the football audience. For people worried about rugby, that's not going to go away. But we do want to sort of spread our feeders into other places and other sports and other sort of environments, stuff like that. So yeah, we will see you guys tomorrow for the next episode, and then we will be live on Friday for the sort of the Premier League preview, basically, a look ahead of next weekend. Some very big matches happening next weekend with Manchester United versus Liverpool, the big one. You've got other decent games. You've got Spurs Wolves, I think it is. Man City versus Newcastle. So yeah, we'll be live again tomorrow for footy. And so yeah, football show will be again tomorrow and Friday, probably. Yeah, definitely. I think it'll be tomorrow and Friday will be the turn of the football show. And then we'll probably look to do a watch along. Hopefully we'll do a watch along this weekend. Which match we'll have to wait and see. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. Smash like on the video. Thank you very much for joining me on the first football show and looking forward